Welcome to the Future of Voice podcast. I'm John Stein, Executive Director of the Open Voice Network, and as you know, we're the Linux Foundation community dedicated to making voice worthy of user trust. We're delighted today to welcome to the podcast Megan Burns. Megan, the Catalyst and Strategic Business Connector. She's currently working with the venture firm Azafran Capital Partners, where Megan provides strategic and marketing counsel in the company's Catalyst program, which is designed to accelerate growth for entrepreneurs and early stage startups. Megan, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. You're at the midst and the intersection of a lot of interesting things. I mean, you understand, and I've had the privilege of working with you. You understand the connection between the business and the marketing world and technology innovations. Give us your origin story. How did Megan Burns get to this point working with Azafran and working especially in this whole world of conversational AI and voice assistants? Tell us the story.
Sure. Thanks, John. Yeah. So for more than 20 years, I've been supporting entrepreneurs and business owners, having worked at Entrepreneurs Organization, Inc. Magazine, Scaling Up. And one of my first employers was our managing partner, James Kenefick. James Kenefick, along with Marty Fisher, who was the president of AOL Technology. He also built Revolutionary Health with Steve Case. They're really tech pioneers. And 6 years ago, we identified, as many of our voice network did, of the changes that were about to come. So really my first experience in the investment world. And exactly as you said, Catalyst, I helped commercialize the technology and help the entrepreneurs and businesses by kind of assessing to see what the market timing looks like, the traction, and the team. And now, today, more than ever, we really need that outlook on where technology is going to be able to be a solution.
Well, technology to be a solution. And you came into, and we're taking a look, as I understand, taking a look at conversational AI and voice 6 years ago. And the market has changed perhaps dramatically, perhaps in ways that we don't yet understand. Tell us, Megan, when you started, what was the kind of the investment thesis? How has that changed to now? What's been the shift?
Yeah, it's been a gradual shift, even though I would say, as everyone knows, this last year, valuations have really balanced out. Yes, they have decreased and regulated, just a little bit more conservative in the investment world. There is still investments to the point for Azafran. We invest in acoustic voice and imagery technologies. We focus in healthcare and B2B enterprise. And having just gone to CES, and we have a great, vibrant investment community here in Philadelphia, keeping an ear to what's going on, really healthcare. How is our technology that we're investing in going to integrate into the systems into healthcare? So that's really an area that everyone has really known. And so in the investment world, that hasn't really changed. I think there's, Azafran, we are based on data and research. So we can kind of insert our opinions of what's going to happen, but it's really being a little bit more of a slower take on investing, blending it with other technologies to solve problems. And I think it's going to be a very, very interesting next 18 to 24 months.
You've emphasized just in your responses here today, Megan, you've emphasized solutions and solving problems. All often, as I've seen the kind of the growing ecosystem of conversational AI and voice assistance innovation, the emphasis has been on technology. How do you make it better, faster, smarter, as opposed to perhaps the integration of the technology into a business process? You seem to be emphasizing the latter, the use of technology integrating into businesses, into business process, into creating business value, as opposed to maybe just simply being, the fastest NLP or whatever else. Tell us about that. Am I on?
Yeah. Well, with businesses in today's landscape too, it's a little bit more of a conservative outlook, whether it is helping to retain and acquire new clients. It even goes into the employees as far as this customer experience includes employees, and the technology is helping that. But that said, the resources of companies are lean. So if there is new technology, how is that going to integrate into their legacy systems? What are the outcomes for the business? That said, there's the evaluation of including or implementing new technologies. It's the understanding and education. John, you and I talk a lot about the education in the entrepreneurial world. It's just not the larger Fortune companies. I had the privilege of talking to a friend of mine that just started working for Nuance. Nuance, owned by Microsoft, experiences the same challenges and integration of technology that a small $10 million company starts up. But they understand that there is a need. They're going to be left behind if they do not look at this technology in order to do more than just the bottom line in an immediate. The results of incorporating technology will be longer term. So it's a very, very careful analysis.
It sounds as if that's a question that perhaps, as you are, and again, as serving in your catalyst role with Azafran, you're vetting, I would think, you're vetting companies that are seeking venture capital and support. What are the major questions you wish, or the major issues you wish they would address more often? What are the holes you find most often? Is it that, you know, creating the business value? Where is it? Tell us about. Give us some advice.
It is in that. As a business owner, when you're in your business, you're operating it versus being strategic and over top, really leveraging resources and partners out there. Understanding what the technology is having impact on. You're doing a lot of great work at the Open Voice Network of like, what is standardization of that data being collected? And we're all part of this. So you have a very busy entrepreneur that is growing. They're experiencing pain. We see it as far as we're helping really to prioritize, keeping an eye on the alignment of the business growing, but not too fast. So you don't want to be leading or bleeding edge, I should say, but to keep up. So it's a very busy landscape out there. And I think go slow. Marty, our managing partner, likes to say, go slow to go fast. So I think that is a good 2023 motto for us all.
If you're taking a look and you're sitting down with, prospective venture players, and you're doing your catalyst work, what might be the top three things, Megan, that you look for? I'm
Yeah, we
sitting down
look.
with you. I have a pitch. I'm building a company. What are the things? What are the top three things you want me to know when I come in?
Yeah, so we're going to assess, and John, I shared with you, part of the Catalyst program for Azafran is we work with our companies prior to investment. We're going to assess the market timing, the traction, and the team. That team is really, really key because often in a startup, that is not going to be the core team to really grow and scale, but they need to be lean and they need to be aligned with where their goals are and where they're going, both on developing the product as well as the marketing and sales. We like to use the example that many people know when the Oculus came out so many years ago. The the timing in the marketplace was not there. It's not to say the technology wasn't valid and needed. So it's really important for companies to keep an eye on where can my technology fit. One of our portfolio companies, Yobi, they were just at
Mhm.
CES. Ken Sutton. Well, they've done a great pivot now as far as their technology is able to extract the voice while identifying that person. So imagine you and I are on a call and you're on mute. Their technology is going to allow, instead of, hey, John, you're on mute, the technology is going to allow that. So again, it's that customer experience. And that's a perfect example of making sure keeping up with the market and the timing.
Keeping up with the market, the timing, and then I think you had a third one in there.
It's
Megan,
the team.
remind us of that. It's just the team. Tell
It's
us
the
about
team.
that.
Yeah,
What
we can
what do
say
you look
three
for?
T's. Uh, you know what? The A very coachable, open. Often, when we are growing or we identify a technology and we become passionate and involved, we put our blinders on. And when I say we do, we believe in. Whereas a little bit more flexibility, a little bit of this might not be going in the right path. So it's that flexibility of the team and the leader to be open to resources, movement, and change.
Open to resources, movement, and change. So you're looking for leaders who understand themselves to be students, always learning, as opposed to perhaps be experts who may have it figured out. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. And as I just talked about, as far as when you're in your business, it's often hard to do that. When you're in your own, it's easier for you to be at a 10,000 level feet, or have somebody else look at that you might not be seeing.
Let's take a look now and Megan step back and go beyond the 10,000 foot level. Let's head
Mhm.
up to cross country 35,000 foot level and peer down at this whole world of conversational AI. I mean, we've had in the last, in the last 2 to 2.5 months, we've had massive layoffs here. We've had major changes here. We've had generative AI and large language models, the likes of ChatGPT,
Mhm.
all these shifts and changes that have been, I mean, just major winds blowing through the voice industry. What do you see for the next 12 months, and then what do you see for the next 36? I mean, are what's you know where do we place our bets here for the next 12 months? If I can ask you that question.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the Chat GPT really brought awareness. The market does drive. The end user is going to bring awareness. And in talking to Pete Erickson of Motive, we both know Pete has a great voice summit and has his ear to the ground on the technology and changing. Chat GPT is really, it's not, may not be the only solution. I remember we had a number of options, years ago when our browsers came out. So this is going to be one of many, but it's really going to drive conversational AI, the need for it and awareness. So if a company is not keeping up with it, then now the consumers in the market is going to drive that. So and as I mentioned, with Azafran, we really rely a lot on research, on data. Recently, over the weekend, I looked. Kathy Wood, who's the chief executive
Mm-hmm.
at ARC Investment Management,
Mm-hmm.
has a great podcast and talked about the 5 innovation platforms and the growth over not only the next 12 months, John, or even 18 months, but she looks in the next 8 years, we're going to experience more change in technology than we have experienced in 100 years. So, as those 5 platforms that she talks about, including AI, it's going to move fast, and we're going to need to pay attention. We're going to need to be very agile. So, I would say in the landscape of our investments, I think there's probably very conservative. There is money investment out there, but I see probably a lot of acquisitions
Mm-hmm.
to keep an eye on, because history repeats itself. And if we look back into the 90s and even back to 2007, 2008, it's kind of survival of the fittest. And so I think that behooves a technology company to kind of keep an eye out whether they're acquiring or to be acquired.
This seems like a major transition point, inflection point, if you use the Andy Grove, John Chambers language of when the rules change. And, we've gone from perhaps a, the world of conversational AI will be defined by consumer facing devices to
Mhm.
now the world is going to be defined by large language models, which may be all about search and etc. And within that market transition, you're telling us this is a time of consolidation, perhaps a time of acquisition, a time of pivoting, a time of realignment. Do you see? Am I on base here, Megan, in terms
Yeah.
of understanding what you're saying?
Absolutely. And we haven't even talked as far as Web3, conversational AI and technology that's going to be needed there. We're only scratching the surface there. So, again, we can make predictions and opinions and wants. And I think that, again, we need to identify our resources, how we're receiving that information, whether, again, through Open Voice Network. Bradley Medrick has that great project voice. We went to CES. You went to NRF. I mean, be out and about. Keep an eye on what's happening in the industries through events and resources and podcast and be agile.
Final question, Megan, and thank you so much for your time today. But we're going to put you on the spot a bit here
Okay.
and give us the three Megan Burns predictions. Maybe 12 months, 18, 24 months out. What should we look for?
The 3 predictions. Okay. So, even though it's not based on data and research, I see healthcare adaptation really accelerating. Um, what my experience in working with some of the healthcare systems, and again at CES, big focus on expansion in healthcare. I see the work coming together of the legacy systems in the hospitals, which are really barriers to technology, of more people coming together, more efforts coming together to make progress. So that I see that in healthcare. I do think Web3, it's going to really create a pivot for us. In that, that said, Web3 is more advanced. I feel that, and again, looking back at history, we may go back to more traditional roots as well, and that is going with the acquisition. So there's not as many companies. So maybe it's a little clearer for
Hmm.
companies or enterprise to be able to understand what they need. And I think that there is going to be standardization. It's a little bit of the Wild West with our data being collected, who owns it, and what are standards around that. I think that that is something that's definitely going to become clear in the next 18 to 24 months.
A third prediction, Megan. A third prediction.
A third prediction. A third prediction, I would imagine. Let me think. Let me stop for a sec. A third prediction, I think it's going to get a little bit worse and challenging until it gets better, but that's not a bad thing. I think that for the past couple of years, we've seen investments of seed and angel being in the millions of dollars. It's been really a fun ride, if you will, but it's been very inflated. And so I think that that's going to take a little bit more time. I'd say going into 2024 before we start to feel a little bit better.
Megan Burns, thank you. And this is the Future of Voice podcast with the Open Voice Network. We've had the privilege of chatting with Megan Burns, Catalyst of Azafran Capital Partners. Megan, thank you so much for the time and sharing with us and giving us your predictions and your opinions. And colleagues, we look forward to the next conversation. Again, the Future of Voice podcast, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.